What's a saying that your mom or dad used to say all the time? When someone was about to say something stupid, dad would say, "Pass the bread, here comes the bologna." My mum would often dismiss irritable or grumpy family members by telling them to have it and lighten your load. My dad would say, "Don't look at me in that tone of voice." Whenever my mom would cook a great meal, my dad would always say, "Can't get this in a restaurant." Edit. Wow. My most upvoted comment ever. Thanks everyone. My dad doesn't know what a Reddit is, but I'll share the good news with him. Me. How far until we're there? Dad, it's just around the corner. It was never just around the corner. Goddammit. Mom just bought these 20 minutes ago. How are they all gone? I grew up in a large family and my mom would shop at those bulk food stores. She'd always buy one of those big plastic containers of bakery cookies and my little brothers would eat all of them as they unloaded her car. My dad used to get so pissed. He loved those cookies. I am the youngest of 5 kids, so going anywhere was slow and tedious. My dad used to say, "And away we go, like a herd of turtles." Double quote. My mom always used plenty in a sarcastic way, so for quite some time, like until turning 7 or something, I thought plenty meant very little of anything. Like when I only left 1 spoonful of ice cream inside the container, she'd say, "Whoa, plenty left." This really confused me when my teacher told the class before a school trip, "Don't worry, there will be plenty of things to do like BTCH, why are you smiling about that?" My dad used to drive me to school every day in high school and when I got out of the car he would say, "Have a good day, learn something new, and don't waste the insert county taxpayers' money." I rolled my eyes every time he said it for a few years, but looking back it makes me smile. If it was a snake, it would have bit ya. My mom's favorite, and very Texan, phrase for when my dad and I couldn't find something, but it was where we were looking or in plain sight the whole time. "Stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about." Write it down on a piece of paper. I'm all choked up with a cold in the head. My father, who had a third of his skull ripped from his head in World War II, refused to accept that he was deaf and of course refused to learn sign language. Well, that's not ideal. My father whenever something pretty bad happened. Me. What's for dinner? Father. Poison. Another was when he found something that was missed previously. What's this at? A ham sandwich? My mom used to always say, "Don't let your mouth write a check that your ass can't cash." Usually it was said when my brother and I were threatening each other over dumb it, as siblings do. She also said it to remind us not to make promises we couldn't keep. You buy cheap, you get cheap. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to be dirty. My mom always said, if someone apologizes, don't just say "Sigh, it's okay." That's saying that what they did was okay. If it was okay, they wouldn't be apologizing. She would always make me say, "I accept your apology," and I hated it. But now I fully understand it, and I use it to this day. My dad. Never back up any farther than you have to. This is outstanding advice. When you hear hoofbeats, don't look for zebras. This is in regards to troubleshooting. That is, check the simplest and most logical cause of the issue before you look for something weird and offbeat. Is it plugged in? Is it turned on? When I'd do something dumb, my dad would say, "I swear you're the milkman's kid." Now I have him in my phone as the milkman. See this finger? See is this thumb? See this fist? You better run. And you're cruising for a bruising. My parents never hit us, so this was always in jest. But my mom did chase my sister and I through the house with a yardstick once. Edit. Fixed and autocorrect. My dad. Heavens to Murgatroyd. I spent years wondering what this meant, and not until I was an adult did I find out that it's something Snagglepuss used to say. Also my dad. Lordy. 1940. Cut my legs and call me shorty. I still don't know what this means. Anytime we were out and about somewhere and I told my mom I was thirsty, she would say, "Want me to spit in your mouth?" This was a whimsical and weirdly polite way of saying, "I cannot solve this problem for you right now, so shut up." I find it oddly comforting to use all of the above on my own kids at various times. The tradition continues. It makes me wonder if my parents were doing the same, and these things actually date to my grandparents, or even earlier. I brought you into this world. I can take you out of it. If you're that bored, go outside. Take your clothes off, put them in a pile, and then guard them. More than don't take life too seriously. You'll never get out of it alive. I remember my grandmother used to say this a lot. I know where your house lives. If life were fair, mommy would have $1 million and kids that listen. She told us that she said it so much that at one point she said if life were fair in the store, and all 5 of us chanted back mommy would have $1 million and kids that listen. On a car trip, whenever I didn't know where we were going and I would ask where are we going, my dad would always say crazy. That's racist. My father about things that mildly inconvenience him and have nothing to do with race. My mom, if I'd complain something hurt, a person alive always has something hurting. My dad is sarcastic as duck. He would always say if you ask stupid questions, you get stupid answers. Mother's things. Asked where have you been? Double quote. Her response there and back to see how far it is. Asked what's for dinner? Double quote. Her response sweet Fanny Adams. Asked where is ma'am? Double quote. Dad's response she's ran away with a black man. If you don't grab the wine I'll beat the it out of you. Siddo's a bear it in the woods in response to a question where the obvious answer is size. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Grades. A equals amazing. B equals better. F equals duck out of my house. It was like an algorithm to find the name of the person she was mad at. 80% of my name. Firstborn. Plus 70% of my brother's name. Secondborn. Plus 60% of youngest brother plus cat's name. Stopping when she hit the name she meant. Examples. Bill Cletus clean your dang room. Bill take out the darn trash. Bill Cleat ma boogles cut back on the ducking catnip you keep pissing on the couch. You have to be smarter than what you are working with. Turn signals must have been an option that year. When someone made a stupid turn or cut my dad off. Tell your story walking. My dad got this from his instructor at the police academy who was a retired NYPD officer. It wasn't necessarily a one-liner, but it's a favorite story of mine and made sense. He was a cop and firefighter. Still is a firefighter at nearly 66 years old. The guy has seen summit. In the mid 80s, right around the time I was born, he was working his shift as a cop and got a call for a domestic violence call at an address they visited frequently. He shows up with his backup a few minutes out. Woman runs out of the house, bloodied with her bruised up son. Boyfriend husband had beaten her and was right behind her coming out of the house. My dad grabs him and he takes a swing on my dad. He dodges it and grapples the guy to get him to the ground. Guy begins swinging more and my dad eventually body slams him and rams his knee into the guy's back, wrenches his arm back and begins to cuff him. On the way to jail, the guy tells my dad that he doesn't fight fair, besides telling him he at least fights someone who can give him a fair fight, and my favorite line, they don't pay me to fight fair, they pay me to win. My dad went on that in nearly every situation his job is to get the situation under control without resorting to putting one or several of his .38 caliber rounds into him. The guy says that it makes sense and he never saw it like that. He told me this when I was 14 or so. You do what you have to do to make sure you walk away from a bad situation. Stop grabbing your D or it will disappear. Sounds like a personal problem. Mainly my mom says it. She says it on the weirdest things that don't make sense. You could say I can't find a bowl and she would probably say sounds like a personal problem. My dad, how is school going? Me, fine. My dad, really? I thought it doesn't go anywhere? Does it have wheels? Same joke. Every month. Dad, if I was any better I couldn't stand it. In reply to being asked how he was doing. My grandmother, life sucks and then you die. My dad used to say, son, if you're not in bed by 10 PM, you should go home. This took me a few years to understand, but it turned out to be sage advice. Damned is the man who abandons himself. Dad used to say this to me when I was doubting my choices. Butter and brood mark Kinder's growth. Basically saying that bread and butter will make kids grow. My dad would always say you're the master of pee pee and your brother is the master of poo poo. My mom and grandma also always used to say that if we don't have any meat they'll cut off my pee pee and use it as meat. Used to scare the it out of 4-year-old me. A foster dad said this it all the time and it enraged me. Do as I say, not as I do. As a ducking adult I never think this way. Lead by example, not by force. If you're gonna do something do it right or don't do it. Whenever I fell or got injured my mom would say, "Oh that looks bad. Should we cut it off?" in a very serious tone. And whenever my dad wants to know if we understand him, or the answer to a yes or no question he says are we tracking? North south? East west? North south is head nods for yes. East west is head nods for no. I use both of those now pretty regularly. A windy day is not a day for thatching. One cockroach recognizes another. Children should be seen and not heard. It or get off the pot. Want in one hand and crap in the other and see which one fills up first. She just says pot, kettle instead of saying the full saying with pot calling kettle black. If someone is working for a living they deserve your respect. Usually in the car as we pulled in the driveway and parked. More than home again. Home again. Jiggity jog. It'd fire and save the matches. And if she couldn't think of a person's name she would call them at hook. Damn. Damn. Double damn. I miss my mom. NQA FOC NQA Mafishkar translates to something like cleaning after cleaning doesn't involve much work. She meant that if something gets messy and you clean it ASAP, it's a lot better than to let multiple things pile up and then it gets tiring to do. Life's problems stem from two things, immaturity or dehydration. At dinner, don't talk with your hands full. We're a deaf family. Holding cutlery while signing is a bad idea. It's nice to be happy but you have to know how. Life's not fair. You'll learn that as you get older. Any more tea in your pot? If the ball is too big for your mouth, then it's not yours. You'll never find a silver lining to things if you spend your entire life digging up coal. My mom said that to me when I was going through a pretty dark time in my childhood. Everything felt terrible up until she told me that. Fast forward 5 years and I'm a pretty happy individual. My dad always say this brings me back whenever he's reversing out of the garage. He still does to this day. He seemed to enjoy the stink eyes he get from everyone in the car every time. Lol. My grandmother used to say they're off tending the garden whenever anyone asked her where someone was. I catch myself saying that sometimes too. Lost his last year's Easter egg. I was a very spacey child. Always lost in thought. Not paying a bit of attention and my dad would say this all the damn time. At my grandfather's eulogy last year, my dad said it was something his father always said. And I imagine he got it from his father. But because my father used it in such a negative way, like I was stupid or something, I won't be using it. My dad uses the advice use your head for more than a hat rack to this day. LXRD scarred. You are able to do anything you set your mind to. I see it in you. You have something that normal people envy. You have ambition, knowledge, humor and everything under the sun. You just have to apply yourself. People will see that you are so much better than you make yourself look. Dad would say this whenever I was doing poorly or my grades were low. My mom when I said I was thirsty. Mom, have some water. I don't want water. Then you're not that thirsty. Whenever someone in our house said put the kettle on, my dad would say it won't suit me. Now I do the same. I don't know how my stepmom coped with us. Don't touch the walls. My dad was a neat freak and used to sponge down our walls on a regular basis. This was pre-magic erasers. The thing is, we never did touch the walls because why would we? He'd just say it if we were close to one. Think before you talk. Pretty generic advice. But it did teach me to only speak when I have something to say and not to say stupid it. My parents used to travel a lot before I existed, so they could speak like 7 languages. Then I was born and they settled. I remember when I was little, I used to follow my mom around and my dad used to say this phrase in Bengali, one of the 30 languages in India. My mom used to tell me he just says he loves you. When I was like 15 I found out that it meant wherever I go, this useless head follows me. Literal translation. Sorry dad. Because I said so. I never liked hearing that as a kid, and I promised myself I would limit the use of that if when I become a parent. If you get too close to my dad in traffic, you are a jagaf. You can wish in one hand and it in the other and see which one fills up first. Too much of anything is bad. If I said I wanted something she'd say, how's it feel to want? You'll understand when you're older. Well, now I am older, and I still don't understand. My mum always has the funniest and most random things. Here's a rough translation of one I've known you: fried fish. Since you were still a baby salmon. It's usually something she'd say when I'd try to lie or trick her as a joke and she'd see through me. She always says it as a joke and now that I'm older I use it to her too. I know it's weird lol. When my mom would want to exaggerate a number, she would always say 752. So like, rather than saying I have a billion things to do, she would say I have 752 things to do. As kids, we thought it was silly. Definitely funnier than just saying a million or a billion. Everything in moderation, even moderation itself. My grandfather, my grandparents raised me, used to say it is what it is. That's actually one of the last things he said, after the doctors told him he had hours left. I miss that man. Mom, every time we're in the car ready to go somewhere, we're off like a herd of turtles. While looking at an entire uncut birthday cake, welp, it looks like there's only one piece left. As a kid, South Park, Crank Yankers, and Dane Cook were popular, so my friends and I would imitate the dumb lines and dumb voices. My mom liked to say no one knows you're playing dumb. Good reminder that first impressions matter. People you encounter only know what they see. Translated from German. It's better than itting your pants. It's pretty much the same meaning as better than nothing.